All right,
Have
so
you
here
got
we
one?
are
Okay.
with the offering of the anatomy of a golf lesson here with Michael Breed and the Morgan Franklin Transformation Center. And we're also in Michael Breed's studio, which is facing his home, the left wing. We have a live audience today, and Michael's been very, very gracious in not only inviting us into his home and serving us pizza. For those of you who didn't show, we got pizza, you didn't. All right. And he's assisted by his staff, Greg Descharme. I'm Greg Descharme's assistant, which is Michael's assistant. So we got a full professional crew here today. We're coming live from Michael's studio, and we've got a lot of exciting things. Michael's always been somebody that I have watched closely. And from time to time, I've taken his ideas because he's been successful with them. And there are things that I've done, which we'll kind of get into going on. But Michael, thank you for having us.
John, thank you for asking me.
The opportunity.
I appreciate it very much. And thank you all. Thank you all for being here. And obviously, thank you all for joining us. It's exciting to be able to open up my studio to allow you all to see the madness. I've got, as John mentioned, my assistant, Greg Descharme, but also my good friend, Steve Gibbs. Gibbsy, I don't know whether you have the ability to let everybody see your smiling face. We always love seeing your smiling face. I know you got a lot of cameras that you're operating right now. So we just give him a second. Dude, there he is. There's Gibbsy. Let's see if you guys could get the, yeah.
All right.
We were a little bit low down on the high fives, but we started working that in the last one. So let me tell you what we're going to do today. What we're going to do is I'm going to go through what we call our player performance evaluation, something that I do when I'm teaching my players to improve, and also it helps me as a coach, helps the individuals that are involved with me become better coaches. And I think it's something that's going to help you to become a better coach as well. What we're going to do also is get to some of your questions. Make sure, and I assume, John, there's a chat that Noah's running that you could just raise your hand or whatever. If you type it in, Greg will be able to read it out because he's in there as well and can see everything. So what we'll do is we'll get to whatever questions that you've got. And then also if we have time, I'll give you a little tour around the studio and how all this nonsense kind of happened. So let me first talk to you about this thing that we call evaluating. What I do, what I ask all my teachers to do is evaluate right away. And I think one of the most important things that you can do as a coach is to evaluate everything. There's a fabulous line that FootJoy had when they were sort of promoting their products. They said, only everything matters. And that has resonated with me from the time that I heard it until this moment now. And it will continue through the rest of my career, because I think everything does matter. And there are many times where, as people might assume that I'm not as serious as I can be, when I get to where I'm doing this stuff, this is as serious as I can get. This means a great deal to me. People are coming to you. They're taking a golf lesson. They're spending whatever dollar they're spending to get your insight and wisdom to help them improve. They're also spending time getting to wherever you are, and they chose you. And I don't want you to forget that they chose you. So you're a coach, you're standing there giving a golf lesson. They could have gone anywhere. Nobody says no nowadays. They all say yes. And they say it yes online, not just in person. And they chose you. And don't take it lightly. It doesn't mean you can't have fun. It just means don't take it lightly. And so for me, I don't take anything lightly. And what you're going to see here as I go through this is how extensive we are in the things that we do when we're trying to help people play better golf. And it holds me accountable. It holds all my teachers accountable, everybody on staff. So evaluate, this is the definition. I'm a big word of the day guy. That's how I roll. I try to get a word every single day that's going to motivate me on how I'm going to behave. And this word evaluate is so powerful. I'll jump right to this one here. To determine the significance, worth, or condition of, usually by careful appraisal and study. Don't let careful appraisal and study run by you, because it is the most important part of this whole thing. And what you're going to see is careful appraisal and study that comes out of our efforts to help our players perform better. Okay. So what do we evaluate? I'm going to zip through this real quickly. Gibbsy, you got me there, right? Okay. So these are the things that I'm evaluating. Now, let me go back here, because when I do this, this is what is my equipment evaluation. And what I do when I give a golf lesson, so let's imagine that somebody shows up, first time that I've ever met them. what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a get to know you. And in my get to know you, I'm going to ask them certain questions, but I look at every single golf club. So I examine the face, I examine the shaft, I examine the grip. Now, why is that important? Well, one, it's going to tell me what their like the biggest challenge that we have as coaches is getting our players to bring their success on a practice area to the golf course. But why do they struggle with that? Well, amongst the litany of reasons, when they go to practice, what they do is they practice what they're good at. So what you're going to do is you're going to take out an 8-iron, and you're going to see the 8-iron has maybe even has some grass on it, but it's definitely got a wear pattern that may be all over the face. It may be towards the toe, whatever it is. But also too, you're going to look at the grip. And this is something, Q, we did at Sunningdale many years ago, 20 plus years ago, looking at what's going on here, because this is going to tell you how frequently they're using it, and also too, what's going on. So when I evaluate equipment, I evaluate every single thing. We don't need to go through all of it, but I look at every single golf club. I look at all the shafts. Do they match? And you're going to see some alarming things. I've seen bags that have a 60-degree wedge and a 58-degree wedge, and then the next wedge is a 48. Why do you have a 58? Well, I won it in a tournament. Well, that's going to be kind of important, because what we all want our players to do is be fit to play their best. You guys, if you watched yesterday and you watched Rory McIlroy yesterday, what he said was he's having a difficult time with his driver. And the reason why he's having a difficult time with his driver is he had to give up his old driver because the face got a little too thin and it didn't pass the test. And now he's trying to find, and look, you all know that I'm a proud Titleist individual. That's why on the bicep, I make sure that the Titleist is out there. But the tailor-made driver that he's got, he can't quite get fit for himself just yet. And so he's hitting shots that aren't doing what he wants it to do. And he doesn't want to say that it's the driver that's not working, but it's the driver that's not working, because why would it be him? It never is. It's always the arrow, never anything else. And so what you want to do is you want to understand what is in this golf bag. The 14, these are the 14 clubs that they've chosen. How did they get there? Why are they there? Did they get fit for it? What's their favorite golf club? What is their least favorite golf club, which is the one that you pull out that literally the only thing that's missing is the wrapping around the head because the damn thing's brand new. And so you look at all of it. Now, I'm going to make sure that doesn't fall over. And so you're going to ask this question, how they got there. And that's the interview process. So I'm asking these people as I'm going through this, I'm looking at all this stuff. I'm taking every single club out of there, and you'll be stunned. If you haven't done this, you'll be stunned at the facial expression that you're going to get from the people that, like, they've never had anybody do this. Why are you doing that? And my response is always the same thing. This is my X-ray. I don't have an X-ray machine. This is my X-ray machine. I look at it with my eyes and I go, okay, you hate to practice with your 5-iron. You love to practice with your 8-iron. You're occasionally practicing with your pitching wedge, but you practice with your sand wedge a lot. It tells you practice habits. It tells you what they're doing and why they're not able to play good golf. And ultimately your responsibility. And I tell you this story because this story has resonated with me for nearly 40 years. I got my first job in the golf business in 1986. I'm working 85, 86. I'm working down in Florida. I get hired to go up to Vermont. I'm a first assistant. I know nothing. I graduated college in 85. So I don't know any, and literally zero, but I'm maybe fun to be with. I don't know. I don't know how I got the job, but I got the job. And I'm giving this lesson to an individual, watching my head pro give a lesson to another individual. And then those two are going to go play golf. And it just so happens that at the place that I'm working at, there's a big, huge window that looks from the pro shop right out to the first tee. And my head pro, as I'm standing there wondering how my guy is going to do, slaps me on the shoulder and he says, I guarantee you this ball goes into what was number 9. I guarantee you it goes over to number 9. And I'm like, and then it does. And I'm thinking to myself, the second that happens, I'm thinking to myself, wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And then it took me about 2 or 3 years later when I realized that means you're not doing your job. Because if you know that guy's going to hit it over there to the right, then you have failed him and you shouldn't be bragging about it. And it was one of the things that really bothered me. And one of the reasons why I do what I do in my instruction, I try to create nervous energy. I want people to be nervous because when they're nervous on the golf course and I'm not with them, I can't help them. But if they're nervous here, then I can. So one of the things that I'll do with my players is when they're swinging particularly well and they think they've got it, I'm going to say, hey, Hendy, check this out. Monique's hitting it really, really good. And then Monique goes, well, why are you asking him to look at my golf swing? I just want to. And my response is always, well, you're going to stand on the first tee and there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to be around there and you're going to be nervous. Might as well do it here and see how you respond. Run to the problems. Don't run away from the problems. And one of the problems is obviously nervous energy. So when you get to where you're evaluating all this stuff, I look at wear patterns on all of these things. I'm looking at the wear pattern on the club. I look at the wear pattern on the golf grip. You're going to see somebody that's going to have a hole in the, and we've all seen this, in the heel pad of the glove. Why do they have a hole in the heel pad of the glove? Well, they're obviously cheap and it's an opportunity to sell a golf club, right? So you got to pay attention to that. But also too, there's a reason. Maybe when they're holding the golf club, they're holding the golf club so that the butt end of the club is right here at the heel pad. I don't ever want my players to do that. I want their hand completely, the heel pad, to be underneath that white wrapping around that beautiful lambkin grip. So what I want is I want that underneath there. And if I'm getting this over here and I'm getting a tear on it, well, now I got a problem. And so maybe the golf clubs are too short. Did you get fit for these? No, I didn't. How'd you get them? Well, my dad gave me. Okay, well, maybe we need to adjust because you got a problem. So I'm looking at all this stuff. And again, the whole mindset is only everything matters. So everything matters. Golf shoe matters. We did a test with FootJoy years ago. Many of you have heard me tell this story. We did a test with just shoes, alternating shoes on. So we had 7 or 8 different people. We had a variety of different shoes that had high heels, low heels, all that other stuff, and then had them put these shoes on and putt. And what we saw was their ability to aim changed dramatically. Their putting stroke changed dramatically. And if you don't know that or not quite sure about it, just one day go and hit some putts like on a mat like this, and then take your shoes off and then putt on that and see what happens. Your eye line is going to change. Your stroke is going to change. Your perception of where the target is going to change. All of it changes. So we've tested golf shoes, and obviously the golf ball, I don't need to tell you about. If it's not a Titleist, it's just a bad decision. It's a simple thing for me. If it's not a Titleist, it's a bad decision. So now I start getting into skill evaluation. Skill evaluation, a lot of people think skill evaluation is what you're doing when the club's in motion. And truthfully, to me, the most important thing is what do you do when the club's not in motion? So this is what we look at in our skill evaluation. This is not everything. This is just everything we can fit on this slide, okay? So you start looking at what goes on in pre-swing. You look at how their ability to aim, their ability to get into the ball the exact same way. Do they have a pre-shot routine? Does the pre-shot routine make sense, right? I remember when I was learning my pre-shot routine, what I learned was that when I stepped in with my right foot, so I was going like this, this was my pre-shot routine. I would get in here like this. Here with just this little move, this is what I was working on. One is the club face parallel to the inside of my right foot. So I was looking at that. Second thing is when I go in here to feel this, I'm feeling the weight in my feet and in my toes. What's going on there? Because most people don't have too much weight on their heels. They have too much weight on their toes. And in large part because many people are told that the weight at address should be on the balls of your feet. I disagree with that. I mean, vehemently. It's not the right place to be. Your weight is shearing in the foot as you swing a golf club. And I don't want you to have weight out on the toes where your toes are grabbing into the ground like you're some sort of a hawk with talons. I don't want to see that. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that my pre-shot routine is giving me the right distance to the ball. It's giving me the proper ball position. So when I go in here like this, now my next step, if I got a driver, my step is like that. It's narrow, so it's about a club head, and then I'm dropping this way. If it's a pitching wedge, then I'm going to go wide and wide, so it's in the middle. So I've got literally 14 different pre-shot routines. They all look the same, but this step when I'm coming up for my left foot, this varies. And what I've done with a FootJoy box, and this is something that you all can do, is open up the FootJoy box, and it becomes Steiny. Can you right underneath that one thing? You'll see a FootJoy box. You'll see the white thing on the ground there. No. The unfolded one. Yeah. Do you see that? Awesome. That's great. So what I have here is, this is a FootJoy box. And what I use with this is I'll lay this down. I have my ball positions. I draw on this thing all over the place. I'm bobbing in and I have, okay, 6 iron, my toe is here. 4-iron, it's here, driver is here. And I never throw this stuff away. And all you got, these are simple to use. All you do is just undo it and then keep it. Simple game. Okay. So everything I'm doing in my pre-shot, my pre-swing, it all matters. And then you start talking about in-swing, what's going on with your evaluation on in-swing. And by the way, if anybody wants these slides, we can just send them to Noah at the Met PGA, and then everybody can get it. Okay. So I'm looking at all this stuff with every single club. I don't take for granted what's going to happen with this. If we get this, then we might get this. That's not the way that works. Okay. Everything is different. You treat them all differently. So you look at every single one, how they're doing with each given club. We have years ago, we had an individual that came to the academy, really hitting everything good with a driver. He literally was topping the ball. Every club is good. He'd stand up there 5-iron. It's like he's a 4 handicap driver, 44 handicap. It was unbelievable. So you got to look at every single club. Don't take it for granted. And you'll get a lot of questions about, well, is this the same with every single club? The answer is, I don't know. Let's see. It's not. Yeah. No. And then we look at all these different areas for putting. That's an analysis that I do. And I go through the same thing. How'd the putter get there? How's your ability to aim? A lot of people aim, a lot of people fit putting and putters differently than I do it. My whole thing in putter fitting and my whole thing is really, can you aim? And then from an ability to aim or an inability to aim, then we're going to start to get putting strokes. And so if you can't aim your putter, just think about it. If I'm using this putter here and I'm trying to hit it into that hole there and I'm aiming to the left, a cup, I now have to time up a face that's opening at the strike. And don't think for a second that if you're opening the face at the strike, you're not affecting the impact point of the golf ball, the impact point of the putter face, the loft on the face, the strike point, toe to heel, the loft delivered. I mean, everything gets changed. So when I'm fitting for that, can they aim the thing? Okay, how'd you get this putter? Like all that stuff, it all goes in there. So we look at their ability to putt. Green reading is something obviously that you all know very much about. Chipping and pitching, we go through all that. Bunker play, rough. A lot of people don't know how to play out of rough. A lot of people choose wrong clubs out of rough. Why are you doing what you're doing? What's the reason behind it? We look at all that stuff. And then one of the most important things, and we'll get to this in the mental stuff that we talk about, are the ability to evaluate a lie. Another area where I think that, I would say that there is some criticism over time, how golf pros have spent more time with players on a practice area than in a playing environment. That's something that we see a lot of. Well, when you go in the playing environment, don't just look at, how they do on the first tee. Where'd they put the tee? What shot did they see? What I want you to do is go, okay, when you get up here, because they're going to miss the green, by the way. And when they do, what you want to know is their ability to evaluate a lie. And to me, like, what are some of the things that are important in the evaluation of the lie? Well, can you spin it? Can you loft it? Do you have enough room to land it where you want? What's your rollout? Do you have the ability to land it where you want to land it, to allow for the rollout? What percentages do you have? How do you deal with a great lie versus a bad lie? What's your club decision? What is the choice of club based on the lie? The lie of how you, like, the lie determines everything in everything. You got a side hill lie. What do? Well, the ball's above your feet. Okay, I'm going to aim to the right. Well, it's a right hole location. Well, then I'm not going to aim to the right hole location. I might aim right at the hole location there. Okay. I might play the face a little bit open. I might grip down on the club. I'm going to flatten this. So I'm going to put the ball back. And I said, all these different things you make based on the lie. It's the same thing with short game. What's the lie? Like, what do you do here? It's one of the things I tell people: when you hit a bad shot and it goes into the woods, don't go into the woods with a golf club in your hand. You'll have a predetermined notion of what you're going to do. Go in there, evaluate the thing. What's going up there? Can I go up? Can I go low? Can I go left? Can I go right? And by the way, take your hat off, because you're sure to run into some sort of a limb sticking out. So we look at all of that with lies. And it's an evaluation that we do with our players. Our players come in and we sit there and we ask them the question: give me a handicap for every single part of your game. What's your driving handicap? What's your long iron handicap? What's your short game handicap? What's your decision-making handicap? What's your putting handicap? What's your green reading handicap? All these different things. And then they go, okay, I'm a really good driver of the golf ball, but my approach shots stink, and that's where I'm losing all my shots. And then you go out on the golf course and you play with them and you find out that's actually not true. You actually are a terrible driver of the golf ball. And that's why your iron play is bad, because you hit it into the wrong position. You're on the wrong spot. And the reason why you're there is because back at the tee, you're putting the ball in the wrong spot on the tee. So you have to make sure that you take their evaluation, and cue ball will remember this. We used to do a thing where we had a 360 evaluation. Hendy knows about this too. 360 evaluations. Everybody evaluates everybody on how their performance is. What are they doing? How are you leading us? What's your dress code like? What's your punctuality like? All these different things. You have to take their perception of their game, and it has to marry with your perception of their game so that you can come to an agreement of, okay, this is what we're going to tackle, whatever it may be. Shot making ability. This is also another important thing. This is also player dependent. You got a beginning golfer, shot making ability is probably pretty low. You got somebody that's a pretty good player. Maybe they're aspiring to play college golf or possibly even play professional golf. Well, you know what? You got to know what their ability is to curve the golf ball, change trajectories, alter spins. And I don't mean just spin it a lot. I mean, take spin off. How do I take spin off? How do I make a ball land with a wedge, land and release right? Or how do I make it land and release left? Well, those are all things that are important. Partial swings. Who practices? Like, name one individual at your club that practices partial shots. They don't. And if you get one that does, they're probably a high level player. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. And then obviously club face awareness. Club face awareness, to me, I think one of the things that we do as coaches is we almost want to be the only source for our individuals that are coming to see us. And what I like to do is I like to give my players the ability to go out and experiment, right? Self-discovery. Hey, take this sand wedge. What I want you to do is I want you to play it open the whole time and tell me what you notice happens. And then I want you to take this. I want you to play this closed. So let's use the clock. I want the club face to point to 11 o'clock with this sand wedge. And I want you to tell me how you're going to hit this thing up into the air. And they go, well, I can't. I go, okay, good. So how do you hit it up in the air? Well, I got to open it up. All right, great job. And now when they get in there, they go, well, the only way I can hit this in the air is open up the club face and get over the fear of, well, if I open up the club face, I'm going to hit a shank. No, you're going to hit a shank because you hit shanks. That's what you do. Okay. Anybody have any questions yet? We're going at warp speed here. So if you have a question, just get it in there. Anybody in here have a question yet? No? Yeah.
How do you have people self-evaluate their game?
It's pretty simple. I just ask them. So they come in, you come to a lesson for me, and I say, okay, John, I'm very familiar with the things that you're doing. Give me your handicap with your putting. What would you say from scratch to whatever? What handicap would you give yourself putting?
Scratch.
Okay, so you're a scratch handicap putter. How about with short game? 3, and then iron play? 4. Okay, and then driver?
Driver 2.
Okay, so better putter, then driver, and then everything else is kind of after that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find out, like, what's a great putter? So my question to you then would be, what is your definition of a great putter?
The ability to stay par 8 to 12 feet.
Okay.
And the ability to limit my number of free putts.
Okay. All right. So there you go. So that's his definition of great putting. Now, that's not my definition of great putting, but that's his definition of great putting. So now I'm going to look at, does he do what he says he does? So every time he has an 8 to 12 footer, I'm expecting to see Ben Crenshaw. And if I don't see Ben Crenshaw, then I'm going to go, okay, well, maybe that's not true. Now, what do you think is important in putting? Like, if you were a scratch handicap putter, what would you define it as, Hendy? I love watching Gibbsy try to figure out how to get this camera over to Hendy.
I would say, first and foremost, I tell everybody when I give a putting lesson, the best putters in the world roll the ball the distance they're trying to roll.
So speed. Okay, so speed is an important thing. And would you say that's the same thing for you? Like, if you're defining is that the most important thing? Aim, speed, and read. Okay, so aim, speed, and read. Okay. Okay. How about?
Yeah, I would say getting the ball to start.
So start line's an important thing. Yep. Okay, good. How about you, Steiny? Mentality. Mindset. So that's an important part of this. How about you?
3-putt avoidance.
3-putt avoidance.
Distance control.
Distance control is a speed thing. Right. So for me, my definition of a great putter is face control. Simple as that, face control. I want to see face control in a horizontal way. I want to see it in a vertical way. Do they deliver the same loft to the ball at the same time, which is roll, which affects speed? Don't think for a second that the speed of the ball, the speed that the ball travels at, is a predictor of how far it's going to go, because it's not. The predictor is what kind of loft are you delivering and what's the impact point on that golf ball? Where is it impacted on the face? I see a lot of people go, well, I'm concerned of the length of the stroke. I don't care about the length of the stroke. I care about the speed of the putter head. Speed of the putter head affects the speed of the ball, but the face, more than all that, affects the speed of the ball. It affects the rotation of the golf ball. If you hit a golf ball with an open face, you can actually get the ball to corkscrew into the ground, which will affect the break of the putt, which we all know. So, but my point is that we've got 7 very, very talented individuals that are sitting in this room. And for the most part, there are 4 or 5 different evaluations of great putting, not including my thoughts. And so what I want to do when you ask that question of how do I evaluate, or how do I get them to evaluate themselves, I want to know what they think is like, what's your definition of a great driver of the ball? Is it that you're hitting a lot of fairways? So that's not my definition of hitting, being a great driver of a golf ball, right? So what I have to do is, as a coach, I got to find out what they think. And one of the things, by the way, that I have sort of a preamble that I deliver when I give a lesson to anybody. And it goes something like, in fact, you know what? I'm going to do this differently. Gibbsy, get the camera on Greg. I'm going to let Greg give me the preamble that we deliver, because this is what we deliver every single lesson. So Gregory, give us the delivery.
Is there, first of all, there's no such thing as a stupid question. There's also no such thing as a stupid answer. If I say anything that confuses you or anything that you disagree with, you stop me right away, because ultimately it's about making sure that you understand it just as much as I understand it. If you don't understand it, it's my fault because I haven't explained it in the way that you want.
That's exactly right. And then the other thing that I do, and Monique will know this guy, Greg Liddell, who worked with us at Sunningdale, we used to call him Joe No-Say, because what I also want is I want my students to know that I don't know is a fine response. So I'll say to them, if I ask you a question and you don't know the answer, don't make it up. It's okay to say, I don't know. All I'm trying to figure out is how the brain is processing whatever it is they're processing, right? Because don't forget, they're there for a reason. And maybe they're there for a reason, not because they have an inability to do what they're supposed to do. Maybe they don't believe it. Maybe they think it's wrong. Maybe they're confused. So what your job is to find out how their brain works, which we'll talk about in a little bit later. But my point is that when you're doing all these things, your responsibility is to know exactly what you're dealing with. What is this person that's in front of me? How did they get here? What did their clubs look like? Okay. Now, here, are there any questions yet, Greg? No questions?
Nope.
Nobody else? Good? Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of stuff in the evaluation. How often or how long do you allot for in that first lesson, or is it a series of lessons where you're
It's over time. This is not a sit down. This is not like a psych ward where I'm going to have them for 3 hours and go, okay, what did you do today? You know, I'm aware of all this stuff, and this is over time. That first thing is the very first lesson. Every first lesson that I give, I'm looking at the clubs. I'm always asking things like, did you get any new clubs or whatever? And it allows you to become familiar with what they're doing and what's going on, right? But over time, these are the things that I'm paying attention to. And in my notes of what I'm doing, working on whatever skill I'm trying to develop, I have an awareness of where they were, what they believed, and then what they now buy into because they're still with me, right? Which brings up another thing that's a little bit different. This is not an evaluation. This is just a random thought. When I teach Socratically. So somebody asks me a question and I ask a question back. I think that's one of the most important things that you can do, because when we talk about allowing players to discover their direction, you want to foster that idea of, well, what do you think about this? Right. So if they come back to me and they go, well, you know what, Michael, I was thinking about this. If I take the putter and I keep the face square, but I just swing across it, I can still make that ball go into the hole, correct? Yeah. Okay. So why can't I do that? My response is, well, what kind of collision are you delivering? Are you delivering a head-on collision or are you delivering a glancing blow collision? And they'll go, well, it's, if I'm swinging across, it's probably a glancing blow. And then I said, yes. So what does that mean in order for you to get the ball to travel the speed that you want it to travel? What does that mean that you got to do with the club? I've got to create more speed in the club. That's right. Okay. And then I'm letting them kind of find their own philosophy. And I know this is the way it works in life. If you ever want to get anything that you want and you're running into an issue with trying to get somebody to buy into, all you got to do is just figure out how to sell it so that they can tell you that it was their idea and then they'll do it. Don't worry about that. There's a great quote that I have on my desk that Ronald Reagan has about not worrying about, you know, who gets the accolades for whatever. Let it be their idea. It's fine. So here are some of the things that I'm doing with the mind evaluation. This is also extremely important for me, not just on a golf course, but away from a golf course. And I have become hypersensitive to how people use language, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Decision-making ability. Now, decision-making ability is a really important thing. And you see it a lot of times with Jordan Spieth, who to me, like if I was working with Jordan Spieth, I would get Jordan Spieth to work on committing to the decision that he makes. I think a lot of times he hits shots with his mind in the right spot, but a lot of times he hits shots where, well, he thinks he could do this, but he might be able to do this. But like what I see happening with Jordan is that when Jordan gets into that moment, and when we see people on TV, we typically see them when they're playing pretty good or they're around the cut line. And when you watch Jordan, when you see all this consternation that he has, all of a sudden it tells me that his decision-making skills are not as good as they could be and not as good as they should be. So what happens with decision-making? You know what happens? Decision-making comes from, and there's a woman down in South Africa named Dr. Cheryl Calder. Cheryl Calder's done a lot of in-depth understanding of what goes into decision-making. And a lot of it has to do with your eyes and your eyesight. And so when you are keenly locked onto something, you're committed to that. And when your eyes are kind of going all over the place. So when I watch people, I watch their eyes a lot. When I'm giving a golf lesson, I watch eyes a lot. I watch the way their eyes flutter. So if I'm giving a lesson to somebody and I'm not sure if they've got what I'm working on, what I do is I just look at their eyes. And if I see their eyes going like this, blinking really fast like that, I know I can't give them any more information because they're processing. Blinking is a processing cue. So when you're watching somebody go, should I give them something right now? And you watch their eyes. If their eyes are quiet, they're good. If their eyes are active, don't do anything. Personality traits. Those are really, really important to me. I believe that people need to play to their personality. And I think that if you don't get time knowing, or you don't spend the time knowing what your students' personalities are, you're going to mislead them and misdirect them. You're going to demand something from them that you shouldn't. I was watching this thing 2 days ago on this 1980 Olympic hockey team, the Herb Brooks team. And Herb Brooks said something that was absolutely genius. I've never heard it said this way. He says, as a coach, you got to decide whether you're going to push or whether you're going to pull. And so when I think of Socratic instruction, I think it's a pull. And so what I want to do is I want to pull greatness out of my players. I don't want to push greatness into my players. I want to say stuff that allows them to want that. And what Brooks did, which was genius to me, was he knew what to say to his players to get them to perform great. Butch Harmon did the same thing. I remember when Jimmy Walker won the PGA championship at Baltusrol on a grueling final day. I think they played 32 holes that final day. It was a wet week. And so Jimmy goes out and he finishes the third round. He plays pretty nicely. He's going out for the fourth round. And I'm sitting on the practice tee. I'm watching. I'm like, when I'm doing what my job with broadcasting, I'm taking all of this stuff that I do here and I put it into there, and I watch behavior, and I watch what goes on. I watch coaches, I watch caddies, because they choke as well. And I watch all this. I try to see who's the calmest, and obviously Butch is the calmest because the guy's he just is. And he said he watched Jimmy hit a couple of shots. He just stood there like like Butch stands there, and then he just walked up to him. He kind of blocked everybody, and he was fairly close to him. And he said one very quick thing, and then he just left. So afterwards, and Butch and I have a good friendship. Afterwards, I said, "What'd you say to Jimmy?" And he said, it was pretty simple. I just said, "Nobody believes that you can win this. Go out there and show them who you are." And when Jimmy got done playing, he said to Butch, the first thing he said to Butch after playing that fabulous 18th hole and ended up making birdie, he said, "I guess they know who I am now." And what Butch said was, he said something to take a guy who, Jimmy's story is he kind of went through the Korn Ferry Tour and he had some success there. And then he got out on tour and he had some good success early. And then it was kind of, and then he got to where, okay, this guy he kind of found his way. But people still weren't quite sure whether they thought Jimmy was a major champion. And what Butch knew was how to say something based on knowing his student, how to say something that would light a fire under his butt, and it would make him go out there and not pay attention to Phil Mickelson and all these other individuals that are out there, that I'm going to show them who I am. It's me against them. And he went out there and he did it. It was awesome. So you got to make sure you know the personality of the individuals that you're working with. Language uses. This is not swear words. This is, Michael, if I could ever develop this skill of my irons, I'm going to be great. So if is a big, it's like somebody swore to me. If is a enormous like red flag. Because if you think of the word if versus the word when is an implication that something is going to happen. You just don't know the timeline. If is the implication that it may not even happen, right? I'm taking all these lessons with you. I'm spending all this money with you. And if I can get this, I'm going to be really, really good. And so when they say if, I go, no. I don't even let them finish. Do you want to use if or do you want to use when? Okay, I want to use when. Okay, good. Then let's use when. When we get this, then we're going to be whatever. Okay. And it is a constant for me. Like it is literally, like I said, it's swearing. It's a swear word for me. The other word that's a swear word for me is try. I don't like try. I like do. I'm going to do this. Not, I'm going to try to do this. I don't want you to try to do something. I want you to do it. And let's figure out how to do it. So I'm paying attention to how people speak. I'm paying attention to their body language. I'm paying attention to all these things because what I want, what you need, what they need is they need to be this superhuman being when it gets into the arena and they have all of these negative deposits into the golf bank. They've all been bad. Everybody remembers what they didn't do. Think about it. When you get done with a round of golf, what do? You sit there and you go, man, if I didn't 3-putt over there on 7, and if I had to hit that shot into the water on 17, that would have been a really good score. And that's what you do. And that's what they do, because you're thinking, well, in order for me to get better, I got to find out what I did bad. And so let's talk about what I did bad first. And Jay knows this. When I play golf with my family, my kids, every single, and now Jay does this as well because it's addictive. What we do is we all go around and we all talk about the favorite shot that whoever hit. So William would say, he would tell us his favorite shot. And then my wife would tell William the favorite shot that he hit that she loved. And then my youngest son, Michael, he's going to say what he said. And then I'm going to say what I said. And all of a sudden we're going to think about these 3 or 4 different shots that were hit. We're going, man, I played pretty good today. Now, what could you have done better? But we're always going to start there, and it starts there all the time. And it leads to other great shots. Well, I liked that shot. Well, don't forget that other shot you hit. And all of a sudden you're playing, man, I played great today. And we're going to talk about a journal here in a little bit. Self-talk is an important thing, and you can see people when they do it. You can see how they react, what it does to affect them. How many times people have told you the story, they're standing over this putt, right? And they go, man, I got to make this putt. This is to break 80 for the first time. I got to make this putt. Don't pull this putt. Okay, don't pull this putt. All right, now don't push this putt. And it's all of a sudden it becomes a don't thing, and you just see this person just like they can't get started, and all of a sudden you see this stroke. It looks like they're getting stung by 58 bumblebees, and then the putter kind of comes through, and the ball doesn't go anywhere near it. And they go, I knew I was going to miss that. How many times How many times, we've all done this, right? How many times have you stood over a putt, you knew you were going to make it and you made it? How many times have you stood over a putt, you knew you were going to miss it and you made it? It doesn't happen. That's the Henry Ford quote, which is whether you think you can, you think you can't, you're right. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You're going to get what you think you're going to get. So when I stand over a putt, and by the way, not for nothing, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but when I was doing the show on Golf Channel, and it was a god awful putting green, by the way, people would come up to me and they go, is there a channel in that green? They're like, you make everything that you look at. Is there a channel on that? I'm like, no. What I always told myself was this: that camera is going to end up in a garbage dump in New Jersey somewhere. I don't care about that. What I'm going to do is, I've just told people, this is what you have to do to make a putt. What I'm not telling them is I'm the greatest athlete in the world. And the greatest athlete in the world isn't going to miss their putt. Now, I'm not the greatest athlete in the world. Many of you know that. I know that. But what I also know is that if I tell myself I'm really good at something, then I expect a really good outcome. And so that's what I tell myself. You don't need to know what I'm telling myself, but you got to tell yourself the same thing. And that's why when you're watching somebody hit a putt and you go, okay, here you go. This is the putt right here. This is the putt to win the club championship. I want you to go through this. I want you to mark it. I want you to line it up. Fresh new putt, whatever it is, bring them to a left to right putt because they hate left to right putts. Bring them to a left to right putt, make it 11 feet, and then go, okay, here you go. This is for the club championship, and see how they react. And I'm telling you what you're going to, and then all you got to do is go, what did you tell yourself over that putt? And what you're going to find out is you're going to find out it probably wasn't good. Okay. I talked to you about shot and club selection, a really important thing. Students evaluation, we discussed practice habits. This is a really important thing. Practice habits are an important thing because you got to start with this premise. People don't like to do what they're bad at. Now, here's an example. You're in school, you're in 7th grade. You're really good in math and you stink in English. What do you do? What homework do you do first? You do the one that you're good at because it's easy. And you keep pushing back the things that are difficult. And when I was in probably 10th or 11th grade, had this guy that was a sort of a mentor of mine. And he said something to me that was profound. And he said, if you do the things you're bad at first, then you'll be much better at it and you'll learn much more. And then you do the things you're good at last. So we go to a practice tee. What do people do? They do the things they're good at. They get their club, their 8-iron, because my 8-iron's magical. And when I hit it, I feel good about myself. And they want to feel good about themselves. And also, too, by the way, there are other people on the practice tee. And so they want to hit that 8-iron. And what I like to do when I go through this thing is I like to go, okay, Monique hates her 6-iron. This thing's brand new. So when she gets to where she's swinging really good, I'm going to switch out the clubs. Here, take this 8-iron. I want you to hit this 6-iron. Why are you doing that to me? I don't want to do 6-iron. I can't stand that club. Because when you hit your shot on the first hole and you get on the first, you've hit a good tee shot. You feel this is going to be a great day. And all of a sudden you've got your least favorite club in your hands. And now all of a sudden, all that practice and all that, those great opening tee shots, they're all done. Because now you're going to hit this thing that's a snake. That's a cobra. It's going to bite me. And then you hit it and you go, I knew I was going to hit a bad shot there. Why? I can't stand my 6-iron. One of the greatest things that you can do, by the way, to take somebody's least favorite club and make it their favorite club is re-grip it. Like it's brand new. Just put a new grip on it. And they'll go, wow, that feels different. And I said, yeah, this is the good luck grip. Go ahead and hit this thing. I'm telling you, good things are going to happen. And then I'm telling you, you can change their mind. So you got to play games like this. But you got to pay attention to their practice habits. How do you pay attention to their practice habits? How many of you go, tell me your practice habit? How many of you actually, like there was a time when we were at Sunningdale that I actually wanted to watch people practice. I thought it was going to be a good idea. It was a bad idea, but it was something. We tried it. What I do is like when you practice, what do you practice? How do you practice? How much time do you allocate? Where do you start? What do you do? Do you stretch? Do you work out? Like, how does it work? Give me paint the picture for me. A lot of the challenges that they're battling on the golf course are going to be found in what they do or don't practice when they're away from the course, when they're getting ready to go play. Level of performance. I'm going to talk to you about this a little bit later because I got a really cool slide on that. Information processing. This is, as a teacher, this is my evaluation. I'm trying to figure out how people are going to learn what I'm going to teach them the best. And it was one of the most important lessons that I learned when I was younger. I have dyslexia, which means I'm not really good at studying. And reading is really a hard thing for me. I was really good at math. That was obviously the thing I did first. That's what I told you about. English was bad for me. I was really, I think my SAT score was like 380. It might have been 370, but it wasn't above the Mendoza line. My math, it was like 650 or something crazy like that. But my English was awful. I actually did better. I did worse in my English SAT than my brother did in his foreign language SAT. That's how bad it was for me. And what I learned was I wasn't that stupid. Teachers were teaching me in a way that I couldn't understand. So what I do is in my Q&A, I'm trying to find out how somebody learns. So I ask them what they do for a living. I try to find out if they're entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurial people tend to be much more spatial. They're less analytical. And if you struggle in this, and I urge you to go try to learn this stuff. If you struggle with this, know this: you will be much more successful teaching an analytical person in a spatial way. You won't ruin them. If you teach a spatial person in an analytical way, you can ruin them. And that's exactly what happened with Seve Ballesteros when he got hooked up with Mac O'Grady. Mac is very, very analytical. Seve is very spatial. He get in here and he just kind of feels things. And if you start going analytical with a spatial guy, they'll become a mess because you can't bring them back. Just you can't bring them back to, okay, get away from that thought and just see a shot. That it doesn't work. And then of course there's kinesthetics, and then the commitment level. Commitment level to me is one of the most important things in anything. How committed, like I don't care what it is that you do, it's a job, a relationship, a golf swing, whatever. There should be, and each individual should have an individual level evaluation of commitment, 1 to 10. Keep a score. Have your players keep a score on their commitment level for each and every shot that they face when they're out there on the golf course. And then what do they get? Are they getting scores that are in the 500s? Are they getting scores that are in the 100s or 200s? And that's going to tell you a lot of things. How committed are they to what you're teaching them? Do you believe what I'm telling you is right? I had a guy tell me one time, we were having a conversation, and we all had these people who want to tell you what they know. Oh, this is my, I don't believe that. I believe this. Okay, why do you believe that? And then this conversation continues to go on. And finally, this guy says to me in almost this pissed off mindset, he goes, "You got an answer for every single thing, right?" And I go, "You better hope I do, because you're paying me money and you want to try to, I assume you want to try to get better. So if you ask me a question, I should know the answer to that. And if I don't, then you should leave." I agree with you. You got to make sure that that individual is committed to the direction you're trying to get them in, or you will never get them going where they want to get to. Here's the analogy that I give. And I'm telling you one of the most important analogies that you can give. You got a boat. It's got 2 seats in it. There's oars on either side. I'm sitting in the left seat. They're sitting in the right seat. If I row and they don't row, what happens to the boat? It's going to go in a circle. If I row and they row in an opposite direction, what happens to the boat? It goes in a faster circle. But if we both row in the same direction, we're going to go somewhere. We don't know where we're going to go, but we're going to go somewhere, right? It's the belief of the possibility. That's what it is. It's a belief in the possibility. So what's the possibility? The possibility is improvement. So you got to make sure they're rowing in your direction. And if they can't row in your direction, you got to make sure that you stop rowing, because you're better off sitting there not doing anything instead of going like this all day. So commitment level is a really, really important part of this. we are all keen into body evaluations. Okay. And these are all things that are very, very important. And they start it is purposeful that mobility and limitations are up top. Because, and my friend Tom Henderson will tell you, like, he goes, I want to speed train. And I want to work on training fast. I've seen this a lot of times. People will get whatever to train faster, and all of a sudden they start swinging faster. And next thing you know, my back is hurting, my arm is hurting. Why? Well, because you didn't have your body in the proper shape in order for you to be able to move properly. And I got to go, a guy that I go to, I introduced Jay to this individual. It's changing his life. Jay's had a bad back for, I don't even know how long. He goes to this guy, and all of a sudden it's like, man, really, I was just doing these things, and now all of a sudden it's all better. Those are limitations, right? You should find out, like, okay, what's the left side strength? What's the right side strength? What's the dexterity? All these different things all go in here. Then you got to know about fitness. Like, what time are you getting up in the morning? Tell me about your day. Well, I get up at this time. I do this. And you go through the day. When do you eat? Well, I eat at this time. How much time do you allow yourself to eat? Well, not a lot, because I'm busy. I got to do blah, 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 blah. Well, how do you expect your brain to work? Your brain's got to work. Don't you think you got to put gasoline in your brain? That's called food, air, water, all that stuff. It needs all that. When are you getting that? Like, you're going to try and teach somebody how to swing better, but you're not going to ask them about what they're doing to, like, what's the gas they're putting in their body? How are they taking care of their car? John Rahm is analyzing his body with Dave Phillips and Greg Rose every single Monday, not every single week, not every Monday. This day, we know what this body looks like so that we can get it prepared on Tuesday and Wednesday so it can perform on Thursday through Sunday. And by the way, he hangs around for the weekends, so he's playing through Sunday. Eye dominance is an important thing. It's not really an important thing for me. But it is important. And also, believe it or not, whether they're left or right-handed. Most typically, left-handed people are very spatial. They'll play, like, people that, like, if I talk to Steiny and I say, Steiny, what do you do away from golf? He says, well, I like to play guitar. And then you watch him play guitar and he plays left-handed. Well, now I know I'm not teaching him analytically. I'm going to teach him spatially. I'm going to create pictures. I'm going to create images. I'm going to tell him that type of stuff. I'm not going to say, okay, I want your right forearm to be at 45 degrees when you start to get into the strike. That's not how that's going to go. But what I might say to him is, hey, I want you to feel like you're going to grab that wall back there when you take the club back. He goes, okay, yeah. Okay, there you go. Just keep grabbing the wall. You got to know about all that stuff. Well, eye dominance is going to give you a little insight into the mind and how the mind processes information. Okay. Okay. Now this is one of the more important things in this. This is the evaluation of their life. So I'll give you an example. So this guy comes to me. His name is Bronson Burgoon. He's a PGA Tour player. He gets recommended to me from a guy from down in Texas. I've stopped working with tour players at this particular time, but I know this guy and I like this guy. So I say, sure, I'll talk to Bronson. So I talk to Bronson. Bronson comes up. We hang out in the studio and we start hitting balls. And the first thing I ask him is, what are your goals? And he says to me, as you would expect somebody that's a PGA Tour player, I want to be the best player in the world. Okay, great. So what does the best player in the world do? This is exactly the conversation. What does the best player in the world do to be the best player in the world? So it's Tiger Woods. What does he do? Well, he gets up at 5 o'clock after having a night where he didn't really sleep that much. And then he probably lifted weights at about 1:30 in the morning because he doesn't really sleep that much. And then he goes back to sleep. He grabs a couple of hours and then he gets up at 5 and then he starts his routine and he goes through all this stuff. It'll hit balls for a couple of hours. And you walk through this thing and he goes, okay, that's a lot. And I said, can you do that? Can you do that for one day? And he says, yes. I said, well, can you do that for 1 week? And he says, yes. And I said, okay, can you do that every day for a month? And he says, I don't know. I said, could you do that every day for a month? Let's say every day for a month for 6 months. And he goes, I don't think so. Can you do it for 6 years? Can you do it for 10 years? Can you do it for 12 years? And he goes, no, definitely not. And I said, why? And he goes, well, because I have a newborn and I've got another kid that we want to have 3 kids. And I go, okay, so what's the most important thing in your life? And he goes, well, my family's the most important thing. And I go, okay, is that lip service or is that true? He goes, that's actually true. And I go, okay, great. So do you think you can be the best player in the world? He says, no. I can't because I'm not prepared to give what it takes to be the best player in the world. I go, okay, well, that's a bad goal. So now what do you want to do? So let's start the next goal because the first goal is out. So what's the next goal? Well, the next goal is I want to be the best player that I can be. Okay, so that's a great one because that now allows you to have a life. It now allows you to kind of prioritize what's important to you. Is it family? Is it faith? Is it friendship? Whatever it is. And then we can work within those parameters to allow you to achieve what you want to achieve. So as you're asking people about like what's going on in the world and you got to find out all these little different things that exist, because those are the things that are going to allow you to help them improve. You got somebody if I'm interviewing somebody like say Bronson, and let's say now it's 5 years later, and I say, okay, Bronson, tell me about you. And he says, well, I'm 40 years of age. I've got 3 kids. One is 8. The other one is 6. And we just, believe it or not, we had a newborn. I know it's hard to imagine. My wife, can you believe it? She's 38 years old. We had a newborn. Now, what do you think that all means? Like, what does that mean to you? Does that mean that they're going to be able to, do they have their time to practice? Probably not. Guy says to you, I want to become a 4 handicap in these next, like this summer. I want to be, what's your handicap? I'm a 12. I want to get to a 4 handicap this summer. Tell me about your life. Well, I got an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a newborn. I think we need to reevaluate those goals. Why? Because you don't have time to be able to do what you need to do in order for you to achieve what you're hoping to achieve. You can't do that. And so by definition, they're going to fail. And so what has to happen is you got to actually show them what is reality. Okay, here's the deal. And what I do with my players is I actually ask them to go through a day and write down their hours of allocation. I get up at this time. I do this from this time. I just did this with Matt Arpano, whatever it was, 3 weeks ago. Started out with the whole thing, had him list all of his hobbies from 1 to like his most popular thing. I love to play golf. I'd love to play golf. Okay, great. I love to fly planes. That's another thing that I like to do. And I like to cook. My wife is a good cook. I like to cook. Okay, now, so rate those for me. Well, golf's number 1, flying's number 2, and cooking's number 3. Okay, great. Now, give me the hours that you spend on golf per week in the wintertime. 0. Okay, and how much time do you fly? Well, I fly 2 hours every weekend. Okay, good. And then tell me about the cooking. Well, probably about 30 minutes a week on that. So I'm 0 and I'm 2 or 3 and I'm 30 minutes. And I go, well, I know you have 1, 2, 3 listed this way, but you got it kind of backwards because flying is clearly number 1 and golf is clearly the last. Now, if you want to get better at this, you got to change that. Well, I don't want to give up flying. Okay, well, then you got to get up earlier. Why do I got to get up earlier? Because you got to get time in here for your number 1 goal. And right now you don't have any of that. So the only thing that's going to come out of it's going to come out of your time, which means instead of getting up at 6, you got to get up at 5:30. Can you get up at 30 minutes earlier? And he says, well, yeah. I go, well, what do you do from 8 to 10? Because most people from 8 to 10, what do? They sit on their butt. They watch TV. They relax because I owe it to myself because I had a tough day. I worked hard all day, 12 hours. I got to the shop at 7. I didn't get home until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I deserve to sit on my ass and think. I've worked hard to do nothing. You're going to get nothing. That's the way it is for me. You want nothing, you get nothing. Do nothing, nothing happens, right? What is that line? Aim at nothing, you'll likely hit it.
That's it.
I mean, that's the way it is. And so what you got to do is you got to walk this through like a whole thing and figure out, diagram it out. Okay, here's where, because people will, if they know that they can get better at something and you give them the recipe for, okay, here's what you need to do. From 6 in the morning till 6:45, you're going to hit golf balls. Every day I get up, I get into here about 5:20. The first thing I do, I turn on all the lights. I walk over here. I stand at my 7-foot spot and I putt until I make 4 putts in a row. Once I make 4 putts in a row, I put my putter down. I go turn on the whole simulator, get ready for the day, start preparing for whatever it is that I got to do. Every night before I turn these off, I stand over this 7-footer and I putt until I make 4 in a row. And it's religious for me. It's like every day. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to putt for 15 minutes. It's not a time thing. I'm going to putt until I do this. And if I get this done fast, then I get to do everything else faster. And if I don't get this done fast, then I'm just going to be late. That's the way it is. So what you got to do is you got to figure out, like, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're talking to your student, Steiny, here's what you're going to do. I know you like to get up early in the morning. You get up at 5:45. And what we're going to do is you're going to get on the bike because your body is not in the position that we want to. So we're going to get on the bike for a little bit, loosen up a little bit. That'll take you 15 minutes. I don't want you any more than 15 minutes. And what I want you to do when you're doing that is I want you to watch Tiger Woods swing from 2000, because you're going to learn how to really compress the lead leg. That was the bet when he was doing that. That was the best he ever was at it. So I just want you to keep watching that stuff there. And by the way, he's spatial. So this is actually practicing. He's imprinting his mind with a vision. And then all of a sudden he gets in there and he starts doing this. He goes, man, this feels different. He hasn't hit a ball because I got him doing something that his brain can understand. And at the same while, when he's working, he's focused on this thing because nobody wants to be on the bike. So we're going to pay attention to this. And all of a sudden the time flies. What goes on at work? What are your life goals? Like, what do you want to achieve? Right. And we'll talk about this whole thing, because I'm living what my goal was. So I get to do that. But you got to know what people's life goals are. They want to be married. Do they not want to be married? Do they want to have kids? Do they not want to have kids? Whatever. I don't know. They want to get to the top of whatever industry they're in. I don't know, but you got to know this. You got to know what their priorities are. Right. Like in our house, we have certain priorities. Sunday morning, I have a priority. It's called pancakes, blueberry pancakes. We have some hash browns, Hendy's over every day. Every Sunday, we do it religiously. Jay stops in every once in a bit. They're good cakes. If you're interested, you want any, just stop on over. Many of you have my address. Feel free to come in. All you do is knock on the door. Carrie's not going to pick it up. She's going to be in bed, but I'll be cooking. But my point is, you got to make sure that you understand all these things about your player, or you're never going to get out of them what they want. And you know what they're going to do? Ultimately, you know what they do? What do? If they don't get what they want from you, what are they going to do? They're going to leave. You're going to be out of business. So these are progress evaluations that I'm doing. So I have short-term goals, long-term goals. Every single year in my business, in my life, I have 1-year goals and 5-year goals. 1-year goals, 5-year goals. Every single 1-year goal. What do I want to achieve this year? What do I want to try to do? How do I want to get better? 5-year goals. Where do I want to be? When I started reworking my golf swing back in 2006, I gave myself it was a 5 years goal I had. I wanted to be where I wanted to be with my swing in 5 years. And as a result of having that 5-year goal, I got to where I wanted to be within 3 years. So short-term goals and long-term goals, there are achievement goals and there are performance goals. So you have to understand the difference between those. And then there's obviously a process goal, right? So your ability to stand over, so like it had been a while going back to that time when I was reworking my swing and I wanted to play more tournaments. It was something that was important to me at the time. And I hadn't played in a little while because I'd been working on things in my life. And so it took me away from that. And so I remember going out and playing Ardsley for the first time. I can't tell you what it was, though. I think it was probably a head pro championship. But anyway, I had one goal, and my goal was not a score goal. My goal was to have under 15 negative thoughts come into my mind. And so I went out, I had 14 negative thoughts. I shot 81. So the next day I wanted to have single digit negative thought occurrences, if you will. And I had 5 and I shot 75. And I didn't worry about what I was shooting. What I worried about was just being focused on when I was just in this one moment, this process of hitting a golf ball, where my head was in what I wanted to have happen. Not what I didn't want to have happen, but what I wanted to have happen. So, and I don't even know if I can remember the whole, but it's sort of It's an uphill dogleg to the right hole. And I want to say it's like maybe 14 or 13. It goes to the end of the property and then the next hole comes back. It's a very tight tee shot. But anyway, I remember standing there and I had this image of playing there years ago when Jimmy used to have a tournament over there, and I couldn't figure out how I was going to get this ball in the fairway. So I had some negative thoughts over this particular shot. And I thought, okay, this is going to be a great test for me, because what I'm going to do now is I don't care about all that other stuff. I'm just going to focus on that, and I'm going to cut it off of that. And I did. It went into the rough, but I hit the shot and I eliminated the possibility of the negative thoughts. And we've all been there. We've all been there. And the point is that when you do this, you've got to make sure that it's not just so simple to say to your student or even to yourself, I want to have a goal sheet. What you have to do is there's varying goals. And what you have to realize is that in those varying goals, some are for today and some are down the road and some are, later in the day, right? Just like you have a to-do list, which brings me to this journal. So what I have here is I have two books. One book is a book that I'm using and one book is a book that I give away. And I order these books and I give them to my students. They're the journals that they're going to have. And what I'm a big believer in is, and I read this book years ago by John Maxwell called Thinking for a Change. And what I loved the book, and I got into the book and I read it and I wrote and I underlined it, did everything. And then I did what he asked me to do and it worked. It's a simple thing. It worked. But what I realized when I got this book and when I read this book was we all think. Every day we're thinking. I'm thinking right now. You guys are thinking right now. We're all thinking. When you sleep, you're probably not thinking, but your brain is still active. But every day we think. And so what we want to do is we want to get better. So at that point, we are thinking for a change. So when you go, okay, I want to change something. Does it start physically first or does it start mentally? Like, what's the order? Is it a physical thing or is it a mental thing? And I had this debate with a very good friend of mine, Ted Kegel, when I was working at Augusta National. And this was back in 1990. And we had this conversation. It was a Sunday. We had this conversation. What comes first? Do you think right first, or do you swing right first and then you can think right second, because your swinging right allows you to think right? And so this was the conversation of confidence. And I said, well, you gotta swing right before you can think right. And I was like I was adamant that I was right because I'm right. And I was wrong. And I learned I was wrong because it doesn't work that way. You bring the body with the mind. You don't bring the mind with the body. And so what you have to do is you've got to make sure that you realize that in order for you to change things, you got to start here, which is why that book was so important to me. But in that book, what it said was this: write down what you want to try to achieve. Whatever it is that you want to achieve, write it down. And what I started doing was okay, I'm going to have a journal. And I journaled when I went to go work at Augusta National for the first time. I journaled. That was in 1989. I wrote every single day what happened. I still have the thing in my office. For the whole 3 weeks I was there, who I met, what took place, what Masters was like, all these different things, all these people that I met, I wrote, and I read it a lot. And I started doing the same thing with my life. I started writing a journal. And if you go into my office, I've probably got 6 or 7 journals, spiral notebooks that I've written in all the time. Well, I do this now with this. And what I do is I make tabs, and gives you, I'm sure you can take that 5 and just zoom in on the tabs of that right there. So you can see, yeah, there you go. You see those tabs right there? So here's one tab right there, and here's another tab that's right there. And what I'll do is I'll take hockey tape or whatever tape, and I just fold it over the piece of paper. So right there, I just fold it like that, and I make tabs, and I have tabs This one I don't have a lot of tabs in, but I do have tabs in it. And what I do with the journal and what I ask my students to do with their journal is they write down their practice plans. They write, like, if you go back to all these things that we've talked about, all the goals, we write down all the goals. We go back to this here, the valuations. Over here, I don't really have them write a lot about the mobility, though I will have some keep track of what's going on with their training programs. And what you'll see when you go to a really good trainer is they write down every single thing that you've done every time you see them. You'll see Charlie does that all the time. You all may work out with people all the time. You may do this already, but keep track of what people are doing. You do the same thing with yourself. So I have journals that are broken down into, and what I ask players to do is break it down into your clubs, into your swing thoughts, into past shots that you've hit that are really good shots. And I have a lot of shots in my database. I remember talking to John Smoltz, the great pitcher for the Braves. He said he had what he called files. And in the files, he knew pitches that he threw to certain people at certain times and what they went for, what they didn't get. He's a curveball hitter. He's a fastball hitter. He likes it high and away or low and away, whatever. And all these different files on all these different people. I have shots that I use in my mind that are tee shots that when I need to go right to left, I have a tee shot that I hit in Augusta was unforgettable. Jack Nicklaus was literally standing on the tee next to me. I have a tee shot there. I have a wedge that I hit in a US Open qualifier in Atlanta in the last year that I was down there in 1992. It was 123. The wind was coming out of the right. The flag was over on the right-hand side, and I kind of held a wedge up against it, and I hit it close. I've got shots that I've hit all over the place. The Long Island Open in 93, I hit a 4-iron to an uphill. Can't tell you what golf course it was, but I can see it right now. The sun, where the sun was and what the shot was a shot that I just recall. I have them all in my mind. And when I go through the course of playing around at golf, like those conversations that we have about the kids and do all that stuff, I will write those great shots down because I have them in my database. And as my database gets bigger, my shots get better. My other shots get better. And so all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, I hit this shot. This is this shot. The sun was in the exact spot. And when I'm working with elite players, tour players, what I will have them do is on Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon of a tournament week, I will have them play the last 9 holes at 4 o'clock. Because that's when everything is taking place. So they'll stand on 10T at 4 o'clock and they'll go all the way through that round. They'll know where the sun is. They will not be fooled by any shadow. You know how some people that stand over a shadow, I just couldn't hit it. The sun was right over my head and the shadow was created. I couldn't get there's not one time where somebody is going to be fooled or they get something unexpected. All those moments. You watch football on the weekends, and what you see is these great coaches with these huge pieces of paper that are all the plays that they've got going on, and they've got all the situations. If we're up by 7 and there's 2 minutes left, or we're down by 7 and there's 2 minutes left, ball on our 30, ball on their 30, like all these situations are all, and they go, oh yeah, okay, we're going to call this play, we're going to call this play, we're going to call it. All that stuff is preparation. That's all going into the week that they're now playing this game on a Sunday. So we write all this stuff down in the journal. And what I would do if I were you is I would invest some money. It doesn't have to be this thing here, but it'd be something like that. Invest in it. When somebody comes to you, go, okay, here's the journal. My expectation is you're going to write in this thing. You're going to set it up the way that you want. We've got clubs. We're going to have scores. You're going to put your scores in the back, when you played, what time you teed off. I've got people that are charting what shoes they're wearing. Hey, how did you putt in these shoes? How did you putt in these shoes? Because we got to figure out what's the best putting shoe for you. How's the glove fit? All these different things all go in there. Because remember what I said before, only everything matters and only everything matters. Now, let me get back to this other thing. Anybody have any questions yet, Greg?
Yes, we have one from Kevin.
Okay.
Do you keep a digital record of these evaluations?
No, I don't keep a digital record. What I want is I want the students to write down in the journals these different things. But I don't know, for some reason, for me, I used to keep a lot of when I was working for Daryl, I used to keep all the videos and then let players take the videos home with them so they could. The theory was, well, they would get better. What I found is that after a couple of months, they started looking at certain things and that weren't things that they needed to work on. And all of a sudden I lost control of them. So I don't really do that. For me, myself, I'm probably, I don't do as much teaching as I used to do. I used to have a digital record of every single lesson, every single thing. I used to keep one, and I made it much like, you write a check and you hand the check out, but you've got underneath it the record of that check. I used to have, I went through this long, elaborate thing and spent quite a lot of money on having, I don't even know what you call that.
Carbon paper?
Carbon paper. Nice work. You know what? You're hired. And so what I would do is I would write down on this thing, and I would have a carbon paper. I would have a white one and a yellow one. The white one I would give to them. The yellow one I would keep for me. And I stopped doing that, not because I got lazy, but what I found is that they would continue to look back at all this stuff like it was their report card from 6th grade, and they would want to read it all over again. And then they just get confused. So I stopped doing that. Any other questions?
No, but I do think report cards came on carbon paper back in the day.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, love the evaluation. What recommendations do you have for like newer teachers who maybe don't have this system that you have? Like, where does somebody start if they don't have this pretty well developed system?
So the answer to that question is you got to be patient. And by the way, this is my system. It doesn't have to be your system, as long as you have a system, right? That's the thing. I think a lot of people develop a system. They find something that works or doesn't work, and I'm going to use this, I'm not going to use that. But if I were getting going, if I were just getting going, this is honestly what I would recommend, and what I recommend to other people. And that is make phone calls. One of the cool things about the game of golf for me, and particularly in the Met section, is I think we all do look at each other like we're family. And I think that if one of you all picked up the phone and said, "Hey, can I come by to see you?" I would say, "Sure." And if I picked up the phone and said, "Hey, can I come by and see you?" You'd say, "Sure." And so at that point, this is your time to be able to kind of find out, well, what do they do that I like? And what do they do that I don't necessarily like? And you start forming this formula to allow you to kind of get to where, okay, I think this is what will work. And then what ultimately you have to do, and this is why it takes time, is you got to find out if it works. Now, how do you know if it works? How do you know if it works?
Try it.
No, your players play well. Like, that's what happens. What your system works if your players play well. I can tell you one of the most uplifting moments in my professional career happened when Chris Smith won at Westchester Country Club in the Buick Classic. And we'd worked pretty hard on this. One particular nuance was I was trying to get him to hit into what we called the piece of pizza. And so Smitty's playing in this in the Pro-Am on Wednesday, and we're over at Westchester, and he's standing over here with the 6-iron. He hits this ball and it goes right at the flag, but it's 20 feet behind the hole, which is not a place you want to be at Westchester Country Club. And so as we're walking up, I go, "What are you thinking about when you're standing over that shot?" He goes, "Well, I'm thinking about making it." I go, "You thinking about making that shot?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm thinking about making it." And I go, "How many have you made?" And he goes, "Not many." And I go, "What if we had a piece of pizza up there?" And he goes, "This is Smitty. I love pizza." I go, "Okay, what if we had a piece of pizza in here, your favorite pizza, and you're going to hit your ball into the pizza?" And he goes, "I can do that." Because I said, you're not very successful hitting it in the hole. So let's make it a pizza. So I go, "Okay." He goes, "Okay. So now what I want you to do is I want you to put the pizza where the easiest putt is for you." And so then we did a little research, and we found out his favorite putt is uphill right to left. A lot of people that are right-handed like that. So what he did was he went around and he went, "Okay, where's my piece of pizza?" And then he just hit to the piece of pizza and then putted from there. And we worked hard that week also too on putting. Well, what happened was he won. And it was at that moment where all this stuff that I do, all of a sudden it went, I literally went to myself, it works. Like it's actually true. And it's not true until they do it, until they win, until they get better. And you get people that can get better, like getting somebody to go from 100 to 90 easy to do. Getting somebody to go from winning a club championship to winning a Met Amateur, hard to do. Getting somebody to win on the Nationwide Tour or the .com Tour and then win on the PGA Tour, very hard to do. LPGA Tour. I had the pleasure of working with Megan Francelis, same exact thing. She had some issues. Well, we worked on some mental stuff and got her to understand how to do all this. And again, believe it or not, it was a piece of pizza again. And all of a sudden she goes out and she wins. I've got bibs from players that I've worked with who have signed things, said, you know, Michael, thank you so much. All that is, I don't have that there to go. I have that there because it reminds me that it worked. And it reminds me to keep going. Like, I want to help the next person. I want to help the next person. I want to help you all become the best teachers you can be. Because when that happens, people play better golf. When they play better golf, they play more golf. And when they play more golf, we all win. We all thrive. So to me, the answer is you do it and you do it and you do it. And then you figure out if it works. Does that answer that for you? Anybody else? Anything else in there? Okay, good. All right. Now, this is something that we came up with at the Academy probably almost 10 years ago. It's our 7 levels of performance. And this comes from this spot. People come up to you and they tell you that they are mentally poor on a golf course. I just don't perform. And it's got to be my mind, because physically on the range, I do great. So I go, okay, well, we know that people don't do great on the range because they're hitting shots they're uncomfortable with. We know they're hitting shots they're comfortable with. So what I did was came up with the 7 levels of performance, and it looks like this. And this is what I do with players. I evaluate them as to what level they're at, and they know what level they're at. So level 1 is that you can perform the action without a ball. I want to take the club and I want to get it on plane. So I make practice swings and I go, oh yeah, the club's in a really good spot. Okay, I'm a level 1 player. Now, level 2, can you do that with a golf ball on the range? Does the golf ball influence your motion? If it doesn't, level 2. Level 3, you can do it on the range to a target. So now we go out, we have a target. I got to hit this ball at that barrel. Now, can I do what I want to do and get it to go to that target? Okay, if you can, now you go to level 4. You can do this to a target on the golf course. This is the big hurdle. Like the change from level 3 to level 4 is enormous. And so you'll have a bunch of level 3 players that can't get to level 4. And now, how do I get them to be a level 4 player? Well, what do you think you have to do? What do you have to do to get somebody from level 3 to level 4? What do you think? Get them on the golf course. It's exactly right. You got to get them on the golf course. So now this changes the way you teach. You now all of a sudden get to move away from the range and go to the golf course. And what I have found through time is that I spend a lot of time on the range in April and May, and then June we start making transitions, and then July and August, man, we're on the golf course. And by the way, it just so happens that a lot of really important tournaments are playing on the golf course, which brings you to level 5. Can you do this on the course in competition? And competition isn't necessarily in a Met Amateur or a Met Open. A competition could be you're playing against your buddy, $10 riding on this shot. Now we're going to find out if you're a level 5. And then to me, this is where you're separating things. So most players will be level 5 players. It's when you start getting that upper echelon player. This is, can you perform on a Sunday? So now this is when you're making money. So this is money time. I had a guy that I used to teach who I probably one of the top 5 swings of anybody that ever worked with, a guy named Ron Whitaker. He went to Wake Forest. He was a really, really good player, Lanny Watkins' nephew. And this one year that I'm working with Ron, I'm telling you, we were crescendo. We'd been a couple of years we've been working together. His golf swing was where I wanted it. Performance was getting good. And he was a 3-round player. He was, and I can't tell you the exact number here because I haven't talked about this in a long time, but he was probably, I I'm going to say anywhere from 6 to 10 times he was in the top 5 going to Sunday. And every time he'd shoot 74 or 5. And I'm like, R-Dub, what's going on? Like, what happens to you when you're out there? Does a shot become too big? Does the moment become too big? Like, what's going on? So then it shifts from that, and we worked on that, and ultimately we found out what happened, and he left the tour. But that's the really important thing. And then this final one is, can you do it to win a championship? And to me, like when I work with elite players, that's what it's all about. I have a lot of people that come to me, like this guy, Bronson Burgoon. He says, I want to be the best player in the world. I said, well, then, okay. And past that, the best player he could be. I said, you have to be prepared to be nervous and win a golf tournament. You got to learn to win. And I think one of the things that happened, and you've seen this a lot of, like if I ask you who was the person that was the most talented person that never won to their capabilities, you probably are thinking about, who would you think about? Who's the person that you thought was surefire going to win everything, and they only won one major and not a lot of tournaments? Clampett is one, not who I'm thinking about. Yeah, Clampett's one of those. This is a woman.
Michelle Wee.
Michelle Wee. 12, 13, 14. This woman can't miss. She's playing men's events. She's winning public AMs and I mean, ridiculous. And she starts playing in men's tournaments, which to me, like, again, as a coach, I wouldn't have had her do that, because you have to learn to win. Learning to win is an important thing. It's learning to perform when it's the most important time to perform. That's it. Level 7. So that's my levels of performance. And then this is the final thing. This is my shot difficulty matrix. So this is something that we came up with to try to help people understand whether they should take a shot on. And so down here, you have this is the green light. These are, so what you have is the penalty for the miss, 1 to 5, the difficulty to execute, 1 to 5. So if it's a 5 in both of those, so how difficult is this shot to execute? It's a 5. What's the penalty for the miss? It's a 5. Don't hit the shot. And so it's sort of like red light, green light, like you can go or you can't go. And a lot of people don't know when they should hit a certain shot, right? Our job is to go, yeah, well, you know what? You should know this. So this is the way we work it. If you're sort of in 1s, 2s, and 3s, you're good. If you get a 3 and a 3, this is up to you. This is medium difficulty with a greater risk of a penalty. And all you're doing is, remember I said you have to assess the lie? You also have to assess the shot. And so the shot difficulty matrix is a thing that allows you to understand, hey, okay, when you're out there playing, what's the level of difficulty here? What's the level of penalty for the miss? And then you start going, okay, this is a 5-5. Now I'm just going to play cautious. I'm going to like, you got to hit it through these trees, and then you got to hook it, and you just sliced it into these trees. You got to hook it out of there, and you need to do it with a 6-iron. And by the way, you're a 12 handicap. It's tempting, but let's just go this way and let's putt for par. And so my responsibility is to be able to paint the picture and go, okay, here's the deal. You're in a 5-5, go that way. If you're in a 1-1, go that way. You're a really good player. This is an 8-iron shot. You don't have to hook it. You just got to get it through a big, huge gap up there in the trees. Go ahead, have at it. This is one of the more important things that we do for our players. And that is that. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about all that? And just a lot of stuff that we talked about, an hour and a half, a lot of stuff that we talked about. Is any questions on that? Any questions that you all have?
I do, Michael.
Yeah.
Good. So you're very much a person of process,
Yep.
and you don't do anything without thinking it out and planning it ahead of time.
Actually, even to that end, and Greg knows this because he and I are in each other's space all day, every day. I bounce everything off of him. Every single presentation, I go, okay, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about this? So not only do I do all that stuff, but I am of the belief that if I have just my mind, I only have my stuff. But if I get collective minds, I can go anywhere. So I also am using other individuals to bounce things off of. I'll pick up a phone, I'll call Tom, I'll pick up a phone, I'll call Jay. These are my two best friends. And I'll go, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what do you think about that? I like that idea. I don't like that idea. What if you did this? What if you did that? And then of course I take the information that they give me and I claim it as mine and I go down my path.
Of course you would. Why
Right.
wouldn't you?
Right. So, but anyway, so that's how I operate.
And so we have a lot of young professionals in our audience today,
Yeah.
you know, zooming in, you know, getting their careers started. So let's take you back 20 years. So now we got Michael Breed as a young professional. What would you do differently then with this 20 years of experience that you've accumulated?
Well, so first of all, I would say we got to rewind it more than 20 years. We got to go 30 because I've gotten a lot older. The terrible answer to that question is nothing, because what I've done got me to where I am. So, and I like where I am. And so I would say nothing. I wouldn't change anything. What advice would I give to somebody, which was what I was fortunate enough to be able to do, was I was always thinking ahead. So when I got my job at Birchwood Country Club for Sean Garrity, it dawned on me, like I literally went, okay, how am I going to become a head golf professional? So I thought, okay, what are the skills that I need to have in order for me to be a head golf professional? And one of the skills that I needed was I needed to be able to interview well, because I needed to get a job. So how do I learn how to be a better interviewer? And then I went and found people that majored in like interviewing skills. And what I think one of the things that like if I would look back and say what are mistakes that I made when I was young, it was I relied too heavily on me rather than relying too heavily on others. And what I've learned now is that I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. All I have to do is find the smartest person in the room and then ask smart questions. And if I do that, then I'm going to be okay. So I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. If I'm the smartest guy in the room, we're in the wrong room. I got a bunch of people that aren't very bright. What I want to be is I want to be the dumbest person in the room, because that's going to allow me my greatest growth. I can remember sitting in presentations for the Met PGA and listening to great coaches teach. And I remember thinking, well, that's not the way I do it. So I'm not going to listen. I remember that. And then one day I'm like, why would you think like that? All I'm going to do is learn something. And so what I would say is, you know, be open-minded. I think being open-minded is probably the most important thing that you can do. I think if you really want to get great, you got to be open-minded. I would tell you the other thing is that you got to write what you want to, like, don't be afraid to write down what you want to achieve. So like I said, when I was at Birchwood Country Club and I'm trying to figure out how to be a head golf professional, I'm looking at all these things that I think are important to get that position. I was trying to figure out, how can I separate myself? And then I started thinking, well, anybody can sell a shirt. Anybody can dress up a shop, but not everybody can teach. So I got to be a teacher. I got to be a really good coach. And then I thought, well, everybody's teaching full swing. Nobody's teaching putting. So I'm going to learn a lot about putting, because that's a target rich environment for me. And that's what I actually went chasing. And I went trying to study all this stuff and know about all these things, and ball rolls and impact points and speeds and all these different things that we now all know. And that was what allowed me to get to teaching tour players, because I established myself as credible in that area. And what ended up happening was I started teaching area pros. I then started teaching touring professionals. I started getting opportunities as a result of the wisdom that I chased from that one little area. And if there was one thing that I would recommend to anybody, is you got to try to find out how you can be better than everybody else, not just through effort, but also through understanding the areas that are open. So a number of years ago, we had a conversation, me and my staff over at Ferry Point where I was, and I said, what do you think is the biggest area that's available for instruction in golf? And nobody could, like, I don't know. And I said, bunker play. Specifically understanding, like, they don't have a launch monitor for bunker play. They have a launch monitor for a putter. They have a launch monitor for chipping and pitching and full swings and drivers and everything. They don't have a launch monitor for bunker play. That's open. That's wide open. So this one guy who worked for us went, man, that's a good idea. And so we actually studied it. And he studied the densities of sand and bounce and then wrote a book. And now he's separated himself. And so for me, I think, what are the areas that exist where you can separate yourself? How can you create something different? We're working on a project together. Jay and I are working on a project together. What can we deliver to an audience that's different than what they're getting? And to me, if you deliver something different, now all of a sudden you have a chance.
Well, I think the opportunity to ride Jay Hill's coattails is something we
Never
all
a
should
bad
take-
idea.
Never a bad idea.
Never a
Some-
bad idea.
Something we should all hope to have the opportunity
Yeah.
to do at some time.
Yep.
Through the med education, which you have a love of, as do I,
You
we've
bet.
interacted now for decades.
Yep.
But two of the things that I most remember about some of the early educational seminars that I attended with you was that you wanted to be around people that you disagreed with
Yep.
so that you could learn. And the other thing was you were taking at that time Dale Carnegie courses.
Dale Carnegie. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So I'm so glad you brought that up. So we'll go back to the first one, then I get to the second one. What somebody said to me was, if you want to feel good about yourself, hang around with people that agree with you. If you want to feel challenged, hang around with people that disagree with you. And when you feel challenged is when you have the greatest opportunity to improve. And so I love that. I love going to coaches that maybe teach something that I don't necessarily agree with. And I want to find out why their systems worked. The Dale Carnegie stuff was one of the, like I told you about John Maxwell, the Dale Carnegie stuff was probably the most influential, most important stuff that I've done, because if you study anything about leadership skills, believe it or not, are found in one's ability to stand up and make a presentation. It's like decision making through eyes. I have this problem with a knee, and I'm going to these people, and I'm like, my knee's not getting any better. And I go to this guy, and he goes, "Well, the problem isn't your knee; it's in your glutes." I'm like, "It's in my glutes." Yeah, pay attention to your glutes, and your knee will get better. I'm like, "Okay," and then it does. We don't know exactly how the decision making skills work with eye movement, but Cheryl Calder does. She's in South Africa. Well, I'm not going down to South Africa. I'm not going down there, but I'm going to get to know her. I'm going to reach out to her. I'm going to find out what she knows so that I know what she knows. Dale Carnegie classes will put you in a position where you understand how to make a presentation. You'll understand how to have leadership skills, and you can do them all at home. And so what I used to do, and I don't do it now because my winters are quite a bit different than they used to be. But when I was working as a head golf professional at Sunningdale, and I would have 3-4 months off, I would routinely take 14, 16 hours of Dale Carnegie classes online every single winter. I have a whole bunch of Dale Carnegie stuff that's in my office about making impactful presentations and the importance of leadership skills, and on and on and on. Also, Toastmasters is another great opportunity. Anything you can do to, we talk a lot about get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's what happens when you have to make a presentation. This, for me, is not a hard thing to do. But if I rewind the videotape back to 1999, when I have to speak in front of a camera and on a corn, there are probably more people that are watching this event right now than watched Corn Ferry events back in 1999. But that camera scared me like crazy. And so I was this mindset, what am I going to do to get better at this? Well, I just got to do it more often. Like, people ask me all the time, how do you get comfortable in front of a camera? And my response is, just go get like 6 of your friends and have an evening where you guys all turn on cameras, and everybody writes down a topic that you want to talk about. And it doesn't have to necessarily be golf. It can be, you could talk about, how to make a golf ball. Everybody has to make a 2-minute presentation, and nobody knows what the other person has written down. So you all get around for dinner, no drinking, get around for dinner, and you put these little notes into a hat, and then the first person goes and gets up, and you go, okay, I'm going to talk about the art of making a rope. And you've never studied it, and you have no idea. You got 1 minute to prepare. And so you get your 1 minute presentation and then boom, you start talking. And there's nothing more intimidating than speaking about something you know nothing about. One of the things that I did as well to challenge myself was I would interview for jobs that I had no interest in taking. And some of them were not even involved in the game of golf, because I wanted to see if I could convince somebody that I was good enough selling me to hire me to do something I had no idea about. And it was tremendous. And what you also learn is what's effective. Again, an unrelated story, but something that is just a funny one for me. And Greg's heard this story 1,000 times. I was down in Richmond, Virginia. It was the wintertime. I didn't really have anything. I saw there was a job opening at a club. They were offering the job for $20,000. I said, I'm going to go interview for this. So I went into the interview, sat down, talked to the guy, looked at my credentials. They're pretty good. I've got a pretty good resume. And I go, okay, I'm going to see if I can get these guys to lift their price from 20,000 to 40,000. So I talk to this guy, go through another interview, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, they come up to 40,000. I'm having this big, huge meeting around I'm telling you, it's around a table it's probably a 14-seater. And I go walk in and I have this conversation. This guy, long story really short, this guy at the end says, he says, Michael, we only hire 10s here at such and such partners. Why are you a 10? And so I said, I'm not a 10. I'm like, my whole goal is to be like a 9.3 or 9.4, trying to be a 10. I don't want to be a 10. If you guys are 10s, I'm in the wrong room. I don't want to be a 10. 10s are people that you got it all figured out. You know the answers to everything. You're done. You finished learning. You're good as you can possibly be. Not me. And I stood up and I walked out. I said, thank you all for your time. I'm done. And I walked out. And what I learned in that interview, even though I didn't want the job, it was great experience for me. What I learned was you got to say what you think because they're going to respect you if it's true. So meanwhile, what happens is that this guy ends up, and I'm in the parking lot, he ends up running after me. And he says, Michael, will you come back in? They want to pay you $60,000 to do the job. They want you to take the job. I said, I'm not your guy. He said, I asked the wrong question. What I meant was, we only hire great talent here. And I said, well, then you should have thought about that question before you asked it. And then I wasn't being an idiot. I wasn't trying to be, a pain in his ass. I was just trying to be honest, to be truthful. And what I found in that was all you got to do is be honest. Like if you're sincere in what you do and you've thought about what comes out of your mouth, it's more impactful, and it's helped me with other jobs. And so this idea of challenging yourself, which is what I learned from Dale Carnegie. It's what I learned with Toastmasters. It's what I've learned with John Maxwell. It's what I've learned with sitting here talking to good friends of mine that challenge me and go, you know what? No, you can't do that. Stop behaving that way. And it's not a comfortable moment, but it's a moment where you go, you know what? You're right. Because I know I get a little bit excited and I know I lift my voice a little bit. And I know that can be somewhat off-putting, and I get it. I know that that's me, and I won't do it again. And that's how you get better. So you got to put yourself in situations, and that's what Dale Carnegie classes will do, my opinion.
I listen to your show with Greg a lot of times in the morning. I'd be on my way to work. I go into the city and so forth. And, and I like your word of the day because I think that's very impactful for people. When I first started listening to it, I thought it was corny. And the more I listened to it, I said, like, yeah, he's on to something here, right? But I like the idea that I didn't like it because then it grew on me.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things that I enjoy most about when you and Greg are interacting is that you're always concerned with things you don't know, not things that you do know. And I think that's very impactful for your audience.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate you telling me that you thought it was corny and that you came around to it. You don't know what it means. And I don't take it lightly that you listen to the show. It means a great deal. And Greg and I prepare very, very hard to make sure that every show is the best that it can possibly be. It doesn't mean that it is every time, but it's that Lombardi quote, you strive for greatness. You strive for perfection in hopes of greatness. And that's what we tried to do. We tried our best to think about what is going to help somebody get better, how to change their mind. We know that there's a mind involved in this. We know that there's a physical part of this. Like we understand what puts this all together. And now how are we going to get people to A, listen to the show, and B, improve? And that word improve is so broad. Like, what do we want? Like, if I say, what do you want to get better at? It could be, it's not just golf. It's anything. What do I want to get better at? I want to be more honest. I want to be more truthful. I want to be in better shape. I want to eat better foods or whatever. Look, okay, now what are you doing to go chase that? So the word of the day to me is something that I started long before the show. What actually, how that came to be was this. I used to, and I have the good fortune of being able to do this. So I'm leaving early in the week to go to Florida to Charleston to talk to the Carolinas PGA and some Titleist staffers down there. And then I'm going out in a couple of weeks to go out to Colorado to talk to that section out there. And what I started doing when I was doing presentations was I asked people right at the very start, because I've studied presentation skills through Carnegie and other things. How do you make an impactful presentation? One of the most important things that you can do is get people involved. So you ask people to raise a hand, you ask people for a certain question, and they get involved and they start listening and their brains are thinking. And you never see this happen when people are like, they're never falling asleep. They're sitting on the front of their seats. And so what I asked this question when I first did this was, what do you think, if you were to have one word, what do you think the most important word is to be the best golf professional or coach that you could be? And then what would happen is people go, well, and they'd raise their hand. And then I would point. Yeah, John. And then they wouldn't stand up. And I was okay, I want you to stand up. And then they would stand up and look at me. And then I go, and I want you to stand up and I want you to tell everybody what you think. Because I know what I think, but you're making a presentation right now. The second you stand up and the second I get you to turn over here, now you're making a presentation. Now I've made you uncomfortable. Now I'm going to tell you to tell everybody what your name is and where you're from. Now I've really made you uncomfortable. So now what I'm doing is I'm trying to help you get better. But now what I'm doing is I'm actually lighting an intensity inside of your soul that's going to keep you awake. And then everybody immediately starts thinking, well, am I going to raise my hand because you're going to do that to me? But then I'm going to go, well, what do you think? Like, what, Steiny, what do you think? What do you think you need to do? And then there's always going to be a guy that goes, you know what? I want in on this. And then they're going to go, okay, you got to have passion. Okay, so enthusiasm is important. Passion is an important thing. What else? Well, you gotta be unrelenting. That's right. You got to be unrelenting. You got to challenge it. And all of a sudden, these words start going. Every single time I just started this list, and I have spoken to now 34 sections of the PGA of America. And the list of words that people have added, I add 10, 12 words every time I speak, and I do it at every single section that I go to. And then I started living my day like that. So Greg knows, Mander probably, on my bulletin board, I have my words of the day that sit right there. And I look at it first thing in the morning. So like I told you, my first thing that I do when I come in the morning as I make these putts, first thing I'll do is I'll look at what the word of the day is on this and how do I want to behave? I want to be thoughtful today. So what I'm going to do when I'm thoughtful is I'm going to ask how somebody's doing. How's your day? What'd you do today? How's your family? How's your wife? The kids are doing good. You know, all these different things. This is how I'm going to, and then all of a sudden, as you start doing this, this is how you behave. This is how you start, like, it starts becoming part of your soul. Today's a smile day. So today I'm going to smile. I'm going to all day long. I'm going to go out. I'm going to smile every day. I'm going to see if I can get you to smile. When I say smile and I go like this, every one of you goes and you all start to smile, and it's contagious. And so what I want to do is I want that same thing to resonate with the people. And what's so funny about what you said is I thought it was corny, and then I've come around to it. That's our most impactful thing that we do on our show is give away golf balls on a Thursday for the word of the day, where we and one time during Masters, I did the word of the day, and we routinely, like 5 years ago, we would get just under 100 people that would try to get golf balls for free. And now we're a couple hundred that are coming in, 200, 250, and you get to see all these names. But one time during Masters, we had 1,500 people reach out to get golf balls. And what they say in the radio space is that for every person that reaches out to you, multiply it by 1,000. That's the number that are listening. So during Masters week, at 1,500 people that were sending in for the show, all of a sudden you're at 1.5 million people. And I was like blown away. Now, I don't know if that's the same number on a normal week, but that's a pretty high number if that's the number.
Well, I've come to appreciate word of the day. Right. So I've made full circle. The other thing that I totally enjoy is when you're saying something and Greg takes you to task,
Yeah.
because there's a great interaction there because Greg just doesn't agree with it.
Yep.
Right. And you can tell when he takes you to task, now you got to think about it in a different way. And you're trying to see Greg's point, Greg's trying to see your point, and it's always a really good interchange.
You know, what's fun is, and this is really, this speaks to the growth of that Greg has had, because so everybody knows, I hired Greg to be my assistant at Manhattan Woods. And then eventually it turned into this, and now he's got a voice in the game of golf. But originally and initially, Greg would just agree with me because he likes his job and he wants to keep it. And then what's happened is he started to realize, as many people do, that I don't really know what I'm talking about. And if he disagrees with me, that's fine. And he says something and he goes, well, I don't know. I see this, this, this. And I go, I see this, this, this. And Greg knows that his job's not in jeopardy, no, as much as we joke about it, but also he's studied this stuff and he's worked really hard at becoming really good at what he does. And it's a great reflection on, obviously on him, but also on our show. And the cool part about all this stuff is SiriusXM is taking credit for Greg Ducharme, but SiriusXM doesn't pay his bill. I pay his bill. And I keep telling Sirius, if you want Greg Ducharme, you got to pay his bill, because I want to get money off of Greg Ducharme.
Well, the thing that's been fun for me is, because I've listened to the show for a long time, and I remember when Greg first came on, and every once in a while you'd hear Greg. And now you hear Greg a lot more. And then I'm driving home one night and I hear Greg on his own show.
Yep.
Late in the afternoon.
Yep.
Doing wrap ups.
Yeah.
And I thought that was that's really cool that Greg came from where he was, with your help, with your tutelage. And it's just what golf professionals should do, right? Veteran professionals should help other professionals. And it's just been a lot of fun to watch Greg and how he's blossomed, and he's on his own show now. And it's, to me, it's really cool.
I think it's one of the things, if you ask, like if I ask Hendy what he's most proud of, he probably is going to tell me the number of golf professionals that have worked for him that have gone on to be head golf professionals. I know as a head golf professional, one of the things that's exciting for me is to see the success that Monique has had, the success that Al's had, what Greg is doing. There are countless numbers of individuals. Matt Daly, who's down in South Carolina, and he's running, I don't even know how many courses down there, 5, 6, 7 golf courses down there. It's the reward obviously is in the success of the people that have been with you. And Maxwell wrote a great book called The Leader's Greatest Reward. And it's about leaders teaching others to be leaders. And it's tremendous.
It's one of the things that Sam Wiley and I were talking about the other day during one of the seminars. And we came up with the idea of putting a list of books together that we want to eventually get on the section website. So we're gonna reach out to you for
I'll tell you
a number
what,
of your favorite books.
when you walk out of here, you're going to see. So I have a pretty nice library, both in that hallway and then also in my office. But on this bottom row those are all my mind coaching books.
I might not leave for a while. I think I might have a few more
Make
slices
yourself
of
right at
pizza,
home.
hit some balls.
Yeah. We
Chat
got
with
some.
Greg about how I can get into the radio.
Yep. Greg, are there any other questions in
I
there?
don't have any over here.
Okay. All right. So do you have anything else that you want to add? Yeah, Jerry.
I have a question. You're talking about your teaching method that you developed through the years.
Yep.
I'm sure you still somehow develop them and make improvements in it. You also mentioned your previous head professionals that you started and talking about Butch Harmon, and I'm sure you have contact with all the best teachers in the industry. Who influenced you most as a teacher, and how this affected your teaching method?
So my greatest influence, and this is not to be corny, but this is just truth. My greatest influence was my dad. He was a guy who told me something that, again, stays with me, every day. No matter where you are, there's somebody that's got it better and somebody that's got it worse, which is kind of one of those things that tells me that I can aspire to more, but I can be grateful with where I am. And I'm grateful all the time. I've learned a tremendous amount of good from a tremendous number of people, and I've learned a tremendous amount of bad from people. I think every situation you can learn good and you can learn bad. I would say, honestly, Daryl Kessner's influence in my life and career is unforgettable, literally unforgettable. There hasn't been one person who I've worked for that I didn't learn something from. Doesn't mean that it has always been a good learn. It's been a learn of, like I've had individuals who I've worked for, not even in the golf business, who I went, you know what, I'm not gonna treat somebody like that. I wouldn't do that to that person. If I get to it, this is when the if came in. If I get to being a leader, I'm not gonna treat people like that. And then it became, when I become a leader, I'm not gonna treat people like that. But I will also tell you too, my friends, Jay, Tom's wife, Jay's wife, they have all had a real enormous effect on me. And I think, it's one of the things that I think is really powerful is this idea that we're all leaders. And I think a lot of people think that in order to be a great leader, you have to be in a position of leadership. And I don't believe that. I used to believe that. I don't believe that. I believe that leaders lead all the time, no matter what their responsibilities are. I watched Mario Guerra, who was when he was a young little guy, do things and go, you know what, I want to do it like that. He led me without thinking about leading me. Greg has led me. Like I can't even, he inspired me this year to get up earlier. He didn't know that he was doing that. He started telling me about how he was getting up a little earlier and doing a push-up and then more push-ups and then changing his diet and then doing all these things. I'm like, I need to do that. So I started getting up earlier, and now I get on the bike, and now I'm doing things that are actually good for me to do. But he doesn't sit there and think to himself, well, this will help lead Michael. Like, leaders are forced to lead, but the others, they just lead by example. They do things a certain way. They share a certain thought. My wife has been a phenomenal leader. I mean, the way she treats people and the way she looks at the world and her undying commitment to others. I think she's maybe the most selfless person that I've ever known. She's certainly the most right person that I've ever known. And she asks me to think about something in a different light. Steiny will tell you, when he was applying for the job, my wife opened up our house to he and his family. That was not my idea. I said, sweetheart, would you mind if my friend comes down here? And she's sure. And cooks for the family. And here, your home is my home. What can we do? I mean, so, but what I would say is this, to really answer that question, I think that what you have to do is, and I said this at the very beginning about open-mindedness with John, I think that if you're open-minded, if you go into something with an open-minded look at the world, then you're going to be open to whatever. And so I think it honestly starts like when I changed from being closed-minded to open-minded, that's when I really started to grow. And it doesn't mean that I'm open-minded all the time now. There are times where I go, no, this is actually the way this needs to get done because this is the right way. And I've tried all the other ways. Like, you're looking at a studio right now in here, and I don't want to tell you how much money that I spent on this, but there's a lot of money that I spent on this. I mean, a lot. 20% of it isn't in this room anymore. 20% of it was mistakes that I made. I had a camera that was originally in that corner, and there was a camera that was originally here because I thought, well, what if somebody's left-handed? And then we moved that out. And then I hired somebody to build this whole thing because the way I had it before was abysmal failure. And then we had, how many times, Gibbsy, Greg, how many times have we moved these cameras around? We had a camera originally. See that cord coming out of there? We had a camera up there that we moved and we shifted down. We had this arm. I bought probably 4 of these arms that kind of shift around thinking, well, this would be kind of cool. We can use that arm in a certain way. Failure. Now that thing just sits there. We don't move that. Like, I've got an arm that's just an arm there. It just sits there. And we went from being random to being organized. And so there are times where I'm like, okay, I've done this. I know what path this goes down. Don't take that path. And then there are other paths I have no idea, but I'm like, okay, what is this going to do? Let's find out. So I think that if we all went through the day with a mindset that we can learn from anybody, whether we agree or we disagree with somebody, we can learn. I don't necessarily think that it's been 3 coaches that have changed the way I've done whatever. I like one of the most powerful things that I've done in my teaching was learning how people process information. I didn't learn that through a golf coach. I didn't learn that through somebody that I worked with. I think if you have this mindset of like if you go get your dry cleaning, can the dry cleaners, there's something the dry cleaner can teach you. And so how do you get that? Like, how do you draw that out of somebody? This is the push-pull thing I was talking about with Herb Brooks. How do you pull that out of somebody? You got to ask about them. Who are they? What do they do? I had a dinner not long ago with a guy who's a golf pro in our section, told a fabulous story about how he interacts with somebody that most people don't interact with. And when he interacted with them, this individual, because he liked the fact that he interacted with them and he wasn't above somebody, he was at the level that they were all at, even though when you look at this, there's a hierarchy. This guy's like, no, I'm on everybody's level. And all of a sudden this goes, hey, you know what? Check out this thing because it's going to help you. And sure enough, it did. Those don't happen if you're not trying to seek information from others. So the answer to that question, long-winded though it is everybody's helped me get to where I got to. I think Krzyzewski's got this thing. It takes 5 fingers to make a fist. We're all together trying to operate, right?
Always gonna learn something.
Yeah. You look at the people that you've learned from who have shaped your life and your patience. Where'd you get your patience from? Did it come from Rod? Maybe it came from your dad. Maybe it came from a situation that you were in as you were coming here to the US to become a golf coach. Maybe somebody treated you in a way. One of the most impactful experiences in my life was this woman that collected money at a toll booth on the Beeline down in Orlando, Florida. Like there was an individual who had a profound effect on me, and I have no idea if they're still alive right now. Never knew their name, but they collected money off of exit 17 in Westport, Connecticut. And I would drive and get off at 95 to this light, and this person would be there asking me for money. And I went from rolling up my window and hoping that the light was green so I didn't have to be confronted by them, to hoping that the light was going to be red so that I could give them $3. It's a complete alteration to my mindset. That individual changed me as a person, changed so many ways about how I behaved after I had just gotten my first head pro job. And I went from I'm this to that's it. Like that's it. That's important. Priorities. So you can learn from everybody. You know what I mean? And I've learned from everybody. Anybody else? No? All right, let me just say one quick thing before you get up here. I say this to all of you and certainly to all of you. I am a proud member of the PGA of America and from the Metropolitan section. There is no greater gift than when John says to me, Michael, will you share information that you have with us? Yes, I would love to. I thank you so much. I don't take it lightly. It is something that we have been working on for a while. This presentation is something that I've been working on for decades. Putting it together is something that we've been working on for an extended period of time. And what I can tell you is that people have helped me out tremendously, and I hope that this has helped you out. I don't take it lightly. Every step I take, I carry with me the PGA of America. I carry with all my partners. I carry all of you as well. And what I hope is that you all think the same way, that you watch what you do, that you're aware of what you do and how you treat people and how you behave. And then the final thing is that if I can ever do anything to help, all you got to do is reach out to me in any of these ways. You can send me an email at anewbreedofgolf@michaelbreed.com. You can send me tweets or Facebooks or any of these things. I'm not trying to promote that stuff. I'm just trying to tell you that I am available. Not right away. You're going to send me something. It's going to take me a little while to get back to you, but I'll get back to you. Because what I want to see and what we all want to see is the growth of the sport and the growth of the success of instruction. It's valuable and it's important, and less than 10% of the people that teach I'm sorry, less than 10% of the people that play the game of golf take a golf lesson. And that's a sorry state of what we do. I think this way, if 10% of the people brush their teeth, it would be an awful way to go through the day. And I look at golf through the same lens. And what we can do to try to help people play better golf is become better coaches. And what we can do to grow the game of instruction is to become better coaches. And being a better coach is having a formula. It doesn't have to be mine, but it has to be something so that you know exactly what you're going to do and how people get better. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you all for coming over. Thank you all for having me here. And John, obviously, thank you and your committee for inviting me to be a part of it.
Michael, it's been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. And one of the things you had to do before you got in this room today was to show proof that you brushed your teeth. So on behalf of this audience right here, thank you all for brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
Those at home that are still in bed, time to get up and do so. One of the things that I love about the education, and I got this from Michael, and I'm going back decades because Michael did a lot of presentations back when he was a head professional, was not only his passion, but his willingness to help and reach out. And going to those education seminars back then, that's what got me interested in it. And hopefully today, Michael's passion obviously came through to everybody in this room, and I'm sure everybody at home, but, try to take some of Michael's passion and his willingness and give back not only to your staff, and to your family, but to your fellow professionals as well. So on behalf of Michael Breed and everybody here at the Golf Academy, thank you. Greg, you're doing a great job.
Thank you, John.
And where are we on push-ups now, by the way?
Oh, we're climbing up there. I've been doing it every day. 150 days in tomorrow.
Amazing. I can
pretty-
remember when
yeah.
you started at 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started
Oh.
at 10. I was doing 2 sets of 10 every morning. And we're doing, close to 8 sets some mornings now.
Another reason to listen to A New Breed of Golf. Thank you. Have a good weekend. Be safe.
Thank you.
Good day.